I feel that in a way what the pandemic did was it revealed the long con of corporatization of government. That if over the last 50, 60 years, government has become increasingly corporatized, that democracy has become increasingly hollowed out and irrelevant, it just took a crisis event to reveal the extent to which that had taken place. Now, the people that are in the outreaches and some of the people in the comments below will talk about, no, the whole thing is staged. It's a global the event. The whole thing has been put in place in order to bring about social credit scores and more surveillance and to facilitate lockdowns. And those are the things that are very, very difficult to prove. But what I think you can demonstrate is over the last 50, 60 years, through lobbying and demonstrable means, corporations have had more and more ability to exert influence and downright control government policy, regardless of which party is in power. And then a crisis event took place, and the momentum that carried it through, like governments like control. That's what governments are about, is authority. But big corporations like profit. That's what they're about. And those two things came together. So the solution that was suggested is, well, we can exert control through lockdowns and potentially coming as close as, damn it, to mandating medicines. They can benefit. The indemnity that they were granted, it was a kind of a perfect storm and perfect revelation. We spoke to a person, I don't think you've had him on because I'm sure I would have been aware if you had, this guy, Martin Gurri, who was a CIA operative who wrote a book called The Revolt of the Public. And he said he was a CIA analyst in 2001. And in 2001, there was as much information published that year as in all human history up to that point. And then 2002 it doubled again. And he said when you look at those analytics on a screen, it looks like a tidal wave. And he said that image stayed with him, and he recognized that power was going to alter radically, because if information can be created and exchanged that quickly, centralized authority is going to be massively challenged. Either the way that we govern communities and nations is going to radically alter, with more power being devolved, with more democracy, with more ability to run your own communities, with more feedback and communities, such as the online world is starting to suggest, communities forming around subjects or individuals or figures or ideologies, or, and this seems to be what's happening, centralized authority is going to double down, look for ways to smear dissenters, censor, create new categories like misinformation, disinformation, suddenly find acceptable views of 5-10 years ago are now not acceptable and are banned, tolerance somehow decreasing under the veil of increasing tolerance, literal Orwellianism, them changing the meaning of words, going back, editing books, stuff that we've seen in dystopian sci-fi actually happening. Martin Gurri, the CIA analyst, offers us that the reason that's happening is because there's a recognition that centralized authority models cannot operate. The elites cannot govern the planet in the same typical way that they've been able to, say, from the 50s or whenever. I'm not an expert in this kind of stuff. But he said, unless we're going to lose things that he considers worth saving, because this guy, Martin Gurri, he's not like a radical person. He likes liberal democracy. He's a first-generation immigrant, I think, from Cuba in this country, worked at the CIA. He's not some sort of pot-smoking radical. He's like a person, but he was saying that what's happened is they've not been able to acknowledge the way that the world has changed. It's changed in an unprecedented way. The first observable sign, or one of, being Napster, the second one, the Arab Spring, the Occupy movement. They've not recognized that now there's a different conversation. And then, you can add you actually to that, because what happened with what we'll do is we'll shut this geezer down. But they couldn't, because the economics of that, we were already too big in the space for that to happen. So they don't know how to. He said what's going to happen is either new elites will emerge that understand how technology works, and I guess that's why we're seeing, have seen the rise of social media, the amount of power those big tech companies have, their ability to evade taxation, the degree to which the Twitter files revealed they work closely with deep state operatives to a point that we just wouldn't know had Elon Musk not made those moves.
I think they're also operating with very crude tools currently that will soon change with AI.
Right.
I think AI is going to completely shift the narrative, and then from then on, you're going to be dealing with disinformation on just a vast scale of impossible to decipher. You're not going to, I watched a video today of Joe Biden talking about some girl's ass. It wasn't real.
Yeah.
But it's like, here, I'll send it to Jamie so we can play it, because it's so crazy, like what they can do now. It's just, how long before it's absolutely impossible to detect? How long before you have no idea what's real and what's not real? It's not that long from now. And they'll be able to, the people that own these enormous tech companies will be in cahoots with government like they are now, that, they censor narratives, they demonetize people that talk about COVID in the wrong way or even at all. They're going to do that same kind of thing, and they're going to do that same kind of thing with whatever they want to whatever they want to highlight, like any narrative they want to highlight. And you like as a consumer, as a person on the outside that's just watching things, it's going to be so confusing. And there's going to be narratives that, like, if you're an inclusive person that believes in equity and fairness for all, you'll believe this narrative. And then if you're a person who believes in liberty and the First Amendment and the Second Amendment and to protect our borders, you're going to believe that narrative. And then they're going to feed it with fake news and fake video and fake voices. Yeah.